Good afternoon all. My name is Mandeep Mahal and I am a senior advisor here at Saïd Business School in the recruitment and admissions team. Before we get started with today's webinar, if I can just check that you can all hear me. So if you could all please respond in the question box just to say yes, you can. That's great, Anna. Thank you. Great, thank you, Joseph. So that's great that you can all hear me. So I will now start with the application tips webinar. So I will be talking to you for approximately 40 to 45 minutes, and we will focus on tips to craft your application for the MBA. And also bearing in mind that we do have our stage 4 deadline approaching, which is the 3rd of April. So without further ado, let's take you to Oxford. Okay, so when we think of Oxford, this picture here does really represent a typical picture of the city centre. So Oxford is known as the City of Spires, and here at the forefront of the picture, you can see we have the Radcliffe Camera. We do have a college, so we have All Souls College. And then behind the Radcliffe Camera, we do have the Bodleian Library. So this is a very typical, authentic view of Oxford. And as a student at Saïd Business School, you are a student of the University of Oxford, and this will take 50% of your time as a student. So we do have the collegiate system here, and as a business school student, you will become a member of a college. So the message that I do want to come across here is that we are a department of the University of Oxford, and we are embedded in that old historic university. And then in contrast, this is the business school. So as you can see, it's a very modern building, and we are a young business school. And here at the business school is everything that you will need for your MBA. So here lectures will take place. We do have our Careers Development Centre here. On the first and second floor of the building, you can see we do have a library here for students. So everything that you do need for your MBA will take place here at the business school. The business school is very conveniently located opposite the train station at Oxford City Centre, so it is very convenient. So when you are here on your MBA, if you do need to go into London for any networking events, it's very conveniently located for you to do so. Just a short train journey, approximately 50 minutes away. Okay, so if I take you through some class statistics for our class profile. So this is our 2019 class, and we had 329 students join us for 2019. So for a class size, we expect a class size of 320 to 330 students, and they are made up of a number of nationalities. So we do have a very diverse, broad mix, and that really does give you a truly international experience here on the MBA at Oxford. You'll be learning from many people from different walks of life. In terms of gender, so we do have 44% female students. So whilst we haven't reached gender parity just yet, but we are moving in the right direction. In terms of the work experience, so there is a work experience requirement on the MBA, and on average, students do have approximately 5 years work experience. So they are able to bring real life examples, have those challenging conversations on the MBA. And then in terms of the standardized test results, so we do, in terms of the GMAT, the class median score is 690. We do also accept the GRE, so for those applicants who are considering the GRE, how that translates to is 160 on both the verbal and the quant side. And we will be talking more about the GMAT and the entry criteria for the programme later on in the presentation. So in terms of, you're all, I can imagine, at different stages in your MBA journey. And these are the round deadlines that we do have for this year, for 2020. So as you can see, stages 1, 2 and 3 have now passed, and we are working towards stage 4, which is the 3rd of April. So I'm sure many of you are considering getting your application ready for our stage 4 deadline. So your application needs to be complete by the deadline in order to be considered. And again, we'll go through that in more detail in terms of a complete application. So the deadline is 11:59 UK time. So you will need to ensure that you do submit your entire application. In terms of the deadlines that we do advise that stage 4 can be a competitive round in terms of the other stages have passed, but and also sometimes we do operate a wait list for stage 4. But what I really do want to make clear is that there are places available for stage 4, and it's just about being able to submit the best application as possible. And we will be talking through tips on crafting your application. So for those of you who are considering stage 4, please be assured that there are places available, and that as long as you do submit your application by the 3rd of April, you will be considered for that programme. There may be some of you who are considering a future application, so you may be considering applying for our 2021 entry. And so applications will open in August for 2021. And in terms of the 4 round deadlines that we do have, they are yet to be confirmed, but you can expect that they would be similar dates that we've been operating for our 2020 entry. So similar 4 round application deadlines. So for those of you can start thinking about, in terms of getting your application ready, thinking about taking the GMAT test or GRE if you haven't done so. Okay, so if we move on and talk about the entry criteria for the programme in terms of the requirements. So it is an online application, so everything you are required to do is online. At this stage, there's no need for you to send anything to us. You can complete everything online, and you can find the link to the application on our website. So entry criteria. So we do ask for an undergraduate degree, but in terms of the subject, we're not too bothered about what subject that is that you've studied at bachelor's degree. There isn't a requirement for you to have studied a business degree. And going back to the previous slide, we talked about the diverse experience in terms of nationalities, but also here on the MBA, we do really have that diversity of thought. We have candidates who come from many different walks of life, who have had different work experiences, have studied different subjects at undergraduate degrees. So that could be anything from music or business or finance, history. We are not too bothered about what subject that is. As it is the University of Oxford, we will be looking at equivalent of a UK upper second class honours degree. And in terms of the GPA equivalency, that I believe is to be a 3.5 out of the 4.0 scale. What I would say is that there's not a requirement for you to have your degree equivalency translated to the UK system. That is something that we can do here. So when you do submit your application for the MBA, the admissions team will be able to look at your bachelor's degree and be able to make that translation to the UK system to see what that equivalency is. And part of the application, you will need to upload your transcripts. So when I say transcripts, it is your mark sheet. So we do need to see the mark sheets for all your years. So if it's been a 3 or 4 year undergraduate degree that you've studied, you will need to upload your transcripts. We can accept the unofficial transcripts are absolutely fine at this stage, and we won't need to see your original or hard copies until later on, in the application stage. That would be if you have been successful in being invited for an interview. We will ask for those documents at that stage. Also, apologies I didn't mention at the start of the presentation, feel free to type in any questions that you do have regarding application tips, and I will be taking those questions at the end of my presentation. As I go through the presentation, you may find that I might have answered your question. But yes, but please feel free to ask any questions in the question box. So then moving on to the next requirement, which is the GMAT or GRE. So you are required to have a complete GMAT or GRE test result in order to apply for the MBA. And in terms of thinking about so in the previous slide, I did mention, it stated that the median class score is 690. What we advise is that the GMAT, we advise a competitive score of 650 or above is considered as competitive to apply for the MBA. And in terms of those of you who are looking at the GRE, so that does equate to 160 on the verbal and the quant side. I would say that we have no preference on whether it is GMAT or GRE. So the advice would be to really think about which test suits you and which one plays to your strengths. I've just seen your question, Simone, about whether the GMAT can be waived. I'm afraid not. We do not take a waiver on the GMAT or the GRE. It is something that you do need to provide as part of your application. And you would need to, so when you do have your test, so you'll need to upload your test report onto the application portal, as well as ensuring that you do add Said Business School on as a recipient so we can verify your score. So you will need to ensure that you do both requirements. We also, in terms of the validity of the test, it does need to be valid within 5 years. And also what I do want to point out in terms of, this is also in regards to the bachelor's degree as well. I would say with the bachelor's degree and the GMAT, we don't have a hard requirement in terms of the grade that we are looking for. So yes, for your bachelor's degree, I mentioned it's equivalent to a UK upper second class honours degree. However, if you do not meet that requirement, please don't allow that to discourage you from applying. The admissions committee do take a holistic review on your application, so we would look at your entire application. So, and that goes again with the GMAT test result, just because you have, if you were to have a particular lower score, I would say, again, that shouldn't discourage you. It's just thinking about other aspects of your application, thinking about your entire strength. And whilst we do advise a score of 650 or above is considered competitive, but if you have a score that is slightly lower, but you believe that is the best score that you can provide, then by all means, you would still be welcome to apply with that score. The median score is just to give you some context of the cohort and where they sit in terms of that standardised test. So we do have a video assessment, but I'm actually going to skip that as I do have a dedicated slide to give you more information about the video assessment. So if I move on to the English language proficiency. So in terms of an English language proficiency, so for those of you who have studied using the English language, but are not from an English-speaking nationality, if your transcripts do state that the median language used to study was English, then you can apply for a waiver. So, and what you would need to do, so as part of your uploading your degree document, so looking at your transcripts, there should be somewhere in your transcripts that does state that the meeting use of instruction was in English. So as long as we can see that information, then you will be, we can provide you with an English language waiver, so there'll be no requirement for you to take a language test. But those of you who've not studied from a university using the English language, or are not a national of a country that is not English speaking, then you will need to take a language test. And we do accept IELTS, TOEFL, or the Cambridge test. And in terms of with the language test, that is one thing that I would say is a hard requirement. So if you are required to take a language test, you will need to meet our scores. So in terms of IELTS, we have an overall score of 7.5, whereas the individual components you'll need to meet is a score of 7. And then for the TOEFL, we have a total score of 110. And the minimum components on the other sections, you will be able to view that on our website. And also, again, with the language test, those language tests, they are valid for 2 years. So if you are required to take a language test, you'll need to ensure that it is valid. And as part of the application, you'll need to upload your language test score report for us to verify that. Moving on to professional experience. So the MBA is a different degree as compared to other master's programs. It's not just theoretical, it is practical, and we do ask for that work experience. So you are able to bring real life examples to the classroom, and you are able to draw upon your experience, and also for your cohort to hear about your experience, and you can have those, you're able to have those conversations. Again, with your work experience, we're not bothered about what sector that is. All students, again, have different ranges of work experiences, have different backgrounds. We ask for at least 2 years postgraduate work experience. So that is after your bachelor's degree, we will be looking for 2 years work experience. And part of the application, you will need to upload a CV. We do ask for a 1-page CV, and there is a template on our website that you can use to condense your CV down if it is longer than 1 page. And there is also a section where it asks you to tell us about your current role. So thinking about what it is you're currently doing, so you can provide us with some information in terms of the responsibilities that you do have in your current role. Moving on to references. So we have a requirement where we ask for 2 references on the MBA, and they can be academic or professional. If you have been out of academia for a while, then it may be sensible for you to have 2 professional references. It's not a requirement for you to provide us with a line manager's reference either. So the advice would be really to think about who knows you well, who's able to tell us about your strengths and weaknesses, and how suited you are to the MBA, and how it is you're going to contribute and perform. So think about who knows you well in a professional context, and you will need to register your referees to the application. We do need to have the referees submit their reference for you in order for your application to be complete. So think about, in terms of who it is that you are going to be asking to submit a reference for you, and do ask that they're able to complete that reference for you as soon as possible, so there's no hold-ups with your application. Part of the application, you'll be able to register the referee's name and email address. And also what we do ask is that the reference email does need to be a professional email address. So we don't accept references from a personal email address, for example, Gmail, Yahoo, or Hotmail. If they don't have a professional email address, then what I would say is get in contact with us, and we can advise you accordingly, but they should, as a professional reference, they should have a professional working email address that they can provide. And then there is a supporting statement as part of your application. It is approximately 250 words, and it's a very open question. It is, tell us anything that you would like to that has not been covered in your application. So this really gives you the opportunity to think about how you can strengthen your application, and you can interpret that in whichever way you would like to. So, for example, you may wish to tell us about a particular achievement or a success that you've had, and that could be in your working professional life or even in your personal life. You may wish to use it to tell us about a particular passion that you have, a particular hobby or interest, or you may wish to use that statement to maybe give us some examples to explain a certain weakness that maybe you have in your application. So thinking about the GMAT or your bachelor's degree, you may find that those grades don't actually reflect your potential, and there may have been something that did go on. So in terms of your bachelor's degree, there may have been a year that you weren't able to, that doesn't reflect your potential. So you could use that supporting statement to address that. So anything that you feel is going to make you stand out and strengthen your application, and there is a word limit on that, and that is 250 words. Okay, so then moving on to the video assessment, so to say I'll go into more detail. So the video assessment does form part of your application, and it is new for this year. You will only receive the link to complete the video assessment when you have submitted the rest of your application. So going back to the previous slide in terms of uploading your GMAT score report, uploading your bachelor's degree, completing the essay, you will need to ensure that you do all that, and then you will receive the link to complete the video assessment. The video assessment does need to be completed by the deadline as well for your application to be complete. So for those of you who are considering applying in our stage 4 deadline for this year, I would say my top tip would be to look to have your application submitted, let's say approximately a week before the deadline. So that would be the 27th of March, I believe. And then you've got a week to then focus on the video assessment. So the video assessment comprises of 5 questions. There are 4 video questions and then 1 written question. And the video assessment has been designed for us to get to know you better, to see how quickly you can think on your feet, and for you to demonstrate your communication skills to us. So the 4 video questions, so you'll find that the first 2 questions will be based on your motivations for the MBA. And the way the platform works is that you'll hear the answer. So you'll actually see a member of the recruitment and admissions team asking the question. You will then have a short time to prepare your answer. And then the video will start recording, and you will be recording your answer. So the first 2 questions will be sort of based on the motivations for an MBA, why it is you want to complete an MBA. And then the other 2 questions are I would say, hypothetical situation based. So it could be looking at a particular competency, so asking you to, how would you react in a certain situation? And then the final question is a written question. So for us, it's to see again how quickly you can type. So typing on, so you are typing against the clock. So it is, in terms of the video questions, it is similar to an interview format. It does not replace the interview, but so if you are successful in being shortlisted for an interview, there is still an interview element on the MBA. But this just provides us with the opportunity to get us to meet the person behind your application. So For those who have not completed a video assessment, it can be quite new to, maybe new to you. So what I do want to say is, and it could be quite daunting as well, but there is a practice session that you can do before you complete the real life assessment. So my top tip would be to really take advantage of those practice questions, and you can use those practice questions as much as you like. So getting used to the platform, seeing how you receive the question, having that short time frame to prepare, and then recording your answer. So you'll be able to watch your answers back. The practice answers that you do record, they are just for you. No one else will view them. So no one else in the recruitment and admissions team will be able to view those answers. So really do take advantage of those practice questions. So when submitting your application, do give yourself some time so you do have plenty of time to take opportunity in making use of the practice session. But then when you do start the actual real assessment, you do only get that one shot. So just take advantage of the practice sessions. And also just to bear in mind, again, this video assessment just forms one part of your application. The admissions committee will be looking at your entire application as a whole. Okay, so if we look at ways in how you can strengthen your application, and we'll be going through these competencies. So if I just spin you around this wheel, and if we start with career vision, so as part of the online application, there is a career development section, and that is something that is very vital in your application. So really do take some time to think about that. So you are here, you're completing an MBA for a reason. It is a one-year program and it is very intense. So whilst you are here on the program, you may not have some time to think about what it is you want to do post MBA. You really need to start thinking about that now. So you really do need to have a plan in place. So what is it that you want to do post MBA? And you need to be able to demonstrate in this section that you can convince the admissions committee that you are able to achieve your post-MBA goal and that you do have a good vision. So it is not our job to get you that job that you want, but we are here to support you with that endeavour and providing it is a realistic challenge. So thinking about what it is you want to do post-MBA, and thinking how the MBA is going to help you achieve that. So you really need to start thinking about, so for example, for those who are looking to do a complete transition, how are you going to make that happen in terms of what research is it that you've done? So you may have connected with alumni on the MBA or current students who are following a particular path. You may have looked at the hiring processes for a particular company that you want to target post MBA. So think about what steps you are taking or will be taking to make your post MBA goals happen. And then or in terms of looking at the research of what the skill sets are required for a particular job, how do you meet those skill sets? So really do take some time in thinking about the research of how you're going to achieve your post MBA goals. And as you work through the careers development section on the application, you'll be able to see the questions and take some time in answering that. There is a plan B section as well. So if you're unable to achieve your plan A goal, what contingency plans do you have? So thinking about those. So really do take some time in thinking about your post MBA goals and what it is. Why is it that you want to complete an MBA and how the Oxford MBA is going to help you achieve that. So then moving on to awareness. So you do need to have some self-awareness and you do need to be tuned into who you are and be able to know yourself very well. So that does sort of fall in line with what we talked about in being realistic in terms of your career goal. but also you could demonstrate that as well in the supporting statement of your application. So if there is something that is not a particular strength in your application, highlighting that. So just being very self-aware and knowing yourself very well. In terms of leadership, so for those of you, so for some of you, you may not necessarily be managers at this point in your career, but really think about how you can use your application to showcase your leadership skills or your leadership potential. So you can explore and exploit that in your application. So you could look again to do that in your career development plan. In terms of the work experience, so you are asked to describe your current role. So thinking about in your current role, are you demonstrating any leadership skills? And then also through your video assessment as well, which then leads us on nicely to communication. So looking at your communication skills, so your video assessment is something that you will be able to demonstrate that in terms of your verbal skills. But then also in your application, thinking about the words that you are putting in your application in that supporting statement really do paint a picture for us and be able to see who it is that you are, and for us to find out more about you. And then with teamwork, so teamwork is something that's really important on your MBA. So think about how you're going to be working with different people. So it is a very diverse program. We've touched upon the nationalities of the cohort, but then also the different experiences that you all bring. So in your application, think about how you can demonstrate teamwork in your application around how you're able to work across teams, and that's something that you could again look to exploit either in your work experience and thinking about the teams that you've worked in, or you may wish to address that in the performance statement. If you've got a really good example of teamwork and that you're quite proud of, that's something that you may wish to use, and also again in the video assessment as well. Okay, so next up are some suitable sensible next steps. So as mentioned, you are all different in terms of where you are in the process of applying for the programme. So for those of you who are new and just starting to think about the MBA, so if you haven't done so already, do download a brochure which will provide you with more information on the MBA. Do look to connect with us, so and also look to connect with current MBA students and alumni. So LinkedIn is a really great platform to do that. So you can look to you can find SBS Side Business School's page on LinkedIn and look to connect with current students and alumni on the MBA. In terms of preparing for your GMAT or GRE, so there is a simulator available on our website. So do take advantage of that. So practice as much as you can with that simulator. So for those who are still early on, and then you can practice using that, and then when you are ready to take the actual test. We do hold events, so we do hold campus visits and we do hold open days and also other webinars. So do have a look on our website, on our event listing page. You can see all the events that we do have upcoming. So do register for those events. And then also on our website, you can see you can follow the link to start your application. Okay, so that's enough from me in terms of the presentation. So I can see that you're all asking some questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mute the microphone just for a minute or so, just as I sift through these questions, and then I'll be back very shortly to be able to answer them for you. Thank you. Okay, great. Thank you. So you can see that there are a number of questions regarding the test centres and regarding to the closure of the coronavirus. So yes, so thank you for those questions, and I do want to address that. So we are aware of particular test centres that have been affected, that are being closed, and the effect that that could have on submitting an application. So if you are a resident of a country where you're unable to take your GMAT, GRE, or your English proficiency test, what we do want to reassure you is that we are aware of that. And for those of you who are applying for stage 4, if you're unable to provide us with a test result due to those test closures, we can still accept your application, providing all other sections of your application are complete. So the admissions committee will then make the decision to interview based on other aspects of your application. So when applying for the programme, really do look at as we mentioned, we take a holistic view on your application. So do ensure that the rest of your application is complete. So we will take the decision to interview based on other aspects of your profile. And then if you are successful, any formal offer of admission will be contingent on you successfully completing a test. So for those of you who are looking to apply for stage 4, we are aware and we are being updated by GMAT, by GRE in terms of which test centres are affected. So you are able to submit your application for stage 4 without having to provide those test results. So I hope that's answered those questions regarding that. In terms of, so I did see that there was a question about someone who has studied in the US, but it's not called out on the transcript. So if for those of you who have studied in an English speaking, so if it is in the US, in Australia, in the UK, that's absolutely fine. You won't need to have a separate letter from the university, as we're aware of those. We're aware that those countries that it is, as it is an English speaking country. It would only be, I'd say, for countries that's just say, for example, India, where I know that generally your bachelor's degree is usually studied using English, and on your transcripts there, it should state that the median use of instruction was English. So I'm just having a look to see. So in terms of, is there a minimum score for TOEFL? Yes, there is. So we have a score of 110, and you can view the individual component scores on our website. So is there a word limit around the post-MBA plans? No, there isn't a word limit on the post-MBA plans. So what I would say is, whilst the admission team, we are looking for a good level of detail, as that is something that it is a vital part of your application, and we do want to see a good level of detail, but also just bearing in mind that the admissions committee, we receive a high volume of applications. So whilst we do want to see a sufficient amount of detail, we also don't want to see pages and pages. So do keep it clear and do keep it concise. Okay, so I do have a question about round 4 versus round 1 in terms of when's it sense to make an application. So what I would say, and I did mention this earlier on in the presentation, so yes, we do say that, and sometimes round 4, as it is our last stage in the application cycle, it can be a competitive round, and sometimes we do operate a wait list. But for this round, for this year, there are places available. So it really is for you thinking about when you are able to put the best application forward. You are applying to the University of Oxford. So whilst one may say it is best to apply early on in the application cycle, I would always say it's best to apply when you are ready, when you're able to provide the best application. So thinking about all elements of the application that you do have, so thinking about your GMAT test result, thinking about that post MBA career plan. So whenever it is that you're ready to provide the best application forward, in terms of if you are unsuccessful in a round, can you reapply? So we only accept one application for that academic year. So if you were to apply for round 4 for this academic year and you were to be unsuccessful, then you can certainly go ahead and apply again for the following year in round 1. But if you were to apply for round 1 for 2021 and you were unsuccessful, you wouldn't be able to apply for one of the other remaining rounds for that academic year. We only accept one application per academic year. So I'm just looking through the questions, so if there's any more that I can answer. Okay, hi Anna. So I have your question about in terms of translating the undergraduate degree, but we need the translation for the transcript. So apologies. So let me just clarify that. So if your transcripts aren't in English, then you will need to have them translated for us to read your applications, to read your transcripts. Sorry, but in terms of the grade. So in terms of the classification that we ask for, so if it's a UK requirement that we look at is an upper second class honours degree, but we do advise there's not a requirement for you to have your degree, for you to know what the equivalency is based on the UK system. That's something that we can do here. So when you do submit your application, the admissions team will be able to look at that and look to see how, look for us to translate that in terms of the equivalency for what is required onto the programme. So there are some questions about the 1+1. Is there any requirements for the 1+1? So for those of you who are thinking about the 1+1 programme, what I would say is you would need to look at the partnering programme that you are applying to. So having a look at what entry criteria is required for them, and they would have potentially have a separate application. The only difference when it comes to applying to the MBA, there's just an additional essay that you'll need to complete, which is why it is you're applying to the 1+1 and how the partnering program and the MBA is going to help you achieve what it is you wish to. So that would be the only difference, the only requirements when applying for the Oxford 1+1. So do we prefer GMAT or GRE? So we don't have a preference. We accept either. So they are, yes, absolutely, they are treated equally. So the advice is to really think about which test suits you in terms of which test plays to your strengths, and we accept either. So absolutely no, they are treated equally, and just to ensure that that your test result is valid. So we have a validity of 5 years for the GMAT or GRE. Okay, so just sifting through the questions. So see. So with the so yes, any questions that you do have. So please do keep your questions general in regards to application for the MBA. So, hi Simone, I've just seen your question about that you've been working, whether you've been working in an English-speaking country, if that would allow you to provide us with a language test waiver. I'm afraid not. So, if you have been working in an English speaking countries and you've been using English on a daily basis, I'm afraid we still wouldn't be able to accept that as a waiver. You would need to take a language test. We only will accept a waiver if you have studied using the English language. And in order for us to waive that, you'll be required to have that on your transcript. So your transcript should state that the instruction of use was English, or you should be able to provide us with a letter from the university on headed paper stating that your degree was taught in entirely English. Okay, so there are still some questions regarding the closure of certain test centres. So so we are aware. So we do have regular updates from GMAT, from IELTS TOEFL about which test centres are being affected. So again, for those who are applying for stage 4, you are able to submit your application without providing the GMAT test result or language test if you are a resident of a country where test centres are being closed. So we can still consider your application for stage 4, and the decision to interview you will be based on other aspects of your application. And just to be aware that this only applies to those test centres that are being affected. So, and you will be expected to complete all aspects of your application. So when will stage 1 applications for 2021 dates will be announced? So applications for 2021 won't open until August. So I would say close to the time we will have clear round deadlines for 2021. But I would say based on previous application years, it would be in September. So just you could work towards that, knowing that it would be based. So stage 1 for 2020 was the 6th of September. So I would say that it would be approximately around that date for 2020. Okay, so if there's I'll just allow a couple of more minutes if there is any more questions. So yes, in terms of will there be any more webinars? Yes. So what I would say is do keep an eye on our website. So there is the events section on our website where all of our events are advertised on there, so you can register for webinars. So we will be doing some more webinars, and they will be advertised on our event section. So do keep up to date with that, and you can register for those events. So yes, with the references, so we only do require 2 references. If you did want to submit an additional reference, yes, I'm sure that is something that you can do on the application portal, but we do only need to accept 2, we do only need to see 2 references. So yes, in terms of do you get access to recorded webinars? Yes, you do. So you will receive the link to today's webinar, so you can listen back and listen back through the presentation. And yes, if there are any other webinars that that you have missed that you were unable to register for, what I would say is please do get in contact with us. In fact, I can provide you with our email address, which is oxfordmba@sbs.ox.ac.uk. So do get in contact with us, and we can we'll be happily be able to provide you with any links to a past webinar that you've not been able to register for, and also any personal questions that you do have regarding your candidacy. You can get in contact with us on that email address. The email address is oxfordmba@sbs.ox.ac.uk. So yes, we do CV review. So yes, you are more than welcome to send your CV for review to that website, and a member of the team can get back to you and provide you with some information based on your profile. Okay, so just down for just a couple of more minutes. So please do type in any more questions that you do have about the application for the MBA. Right, apologies, Simra. I'm just regarding your question about do both references have to be submitted as well before you get the video assessment link? That's a very good question. No. So you will actually get the video assessment link, providing the other aspects of your application are complete. So no, the references don't have to have submitted their reference for you. But what I would say is that your referees do need to ensure that they have submitted their references for you by the final application deadline. So if you are considering round 4, it does need to be by the 3rd of April. But as long as the rest of your application is complete, then you will receive the link to the video assessment. So Diana, in terms of if you're referring to the test closures regarding the coronavirus, so if you are looking to apply for stage 4 and your test centres are affected, so yes, you can still send your application for round 4 and your application will be considered, but you will need to still take the GMAT or the IELTS if applicable to you at a later date. But before the application deadline for stage 4, you can go ahead and submit. And for those who are being affected by the test closures, in order to have your application as complete, what I would say to do on the application portal is to ensure that you populate the relevant test date fields with a future date, and do upload a placeholder document to that section so your application can be marked as complete for the admissions committee to review for stage 4. So there are a couple of questions regarding scholarships. So yes, there are still scholarships available for stage 4, and your application will be considered. So if there are scholarships that are applicable to you, you will be considered for a scholarship as you go through the process for through the admissions process. Okay, so I believe that's all the questions regarding the application tips. If there are any further questions that you do have, please feel free to get in contact with us. And but thank you for listening, taking time out listening to me today. So next steps, we will be following up with you with the link to the recording so you can watch back again if you need to. But yes, thank you for taking the time, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.